again, not spending too much on the top with counts and expenditures because some of the districts have data that says not available, and again, on the bottom as well. So the comparisons are a little bit thin here because some of the data wasn't as readily sourced from these other districts. But looking at maintenance expenditures as a percentage of the entire total expenditures in Gen Ed, we're sitting at 9.6, and then you can see how that compares. We do have a peer district out there, Van Buren, that's also sitting at 9.6, and Wayne Westland as well. And then some others are slightly less or markedly less in those categories. And really that speaks to what I talked about a little bit earlier. When you think about the age of our buildings, the amount of maintenance we're having to do on the buildings on a regular basis, we're doing significantly more work. If our district's building average is pushing 40 to 50 years or more, we're going to maintain them at a higher rate than if your building average is 20 years. It's just like your home, same thing. Looking at utilities expenditures per student, again, we're at 209. You can see how that compares. You know, there are a couple districts that are slightly higher, so that's a comparison that is what it is. You know, things like insulation upgrades, things like new windows, high efficiency heat pumps or heating systems, LED lighting, working with companies that can bring in some low E, you know, utility works is part of that equation. And then repairs and maintenance costs and communications on the bottom. You can see how those compare.
What does communications entail, cost per student?
Penny, help me break that down. I think it says on the bottom, costs for telephone, telegraph are not included here, but are included in communications. Communications equals...
I'm trying to read whatever.
Water.
Because it then talks about we have higher internet because of the CDLA and different aspects of that as well.
But Lincoln Park does an online program too. I just find that number alarming, 85.17, and the closest one to that is Van Buren at 46.09, and the lowest is 7.44. So we can see what is included in that communications.
Of course.
And then repairs and maintenance, the bottom one, if you, Lincoln, or Allen Park passed a bond, they have, you know, beautiful buildings and have already done a lot of that work. So that's why I was asking about cohort comparison districts. Some of these districts have passed bonds, and so their repairs and maintenance costs would not be as high as
Sure.
ours.
Could I just make a suggestion? This is a lot of information tonight, and I know time is of the essence because this board still has a rather lengthy presentation. To maybe take this and review it, get the questions, and with the new board coming in January, this would be the information they should be dealing with. I don't know if anyone else, but you guys still have, or we still have a hour and a half to 2 hour presentation at the tail end of this that you still have to sit through. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is.
This is certainly not the last time we're going to look at this. So to your point, this is great reading and material for over the break. We know we're scheduling a finance committee meeting to really break this down in greater detail and continue to work with this. This is data that isn't really changing. It's a year in arrears. So you know, and maybe, you know, building on that, as you look at things and think of questions, if we find a category like communications, we can tease that apart with Lisa to pick apart all the contributors to that line item, and then have more information for the finance committee.
If you could email me the questions by the night so that we can work on them to have all your questions answered or the data pulled that you want for the finance committee so that we have a more detailed explanation for what your questions are.
Is this in Excel? Okay. You know my question.
So we'll send it to you in Excel.
Send it, that way we can look at it that way, but this was supposed to be presented at the meeting that got canceled because of the weather, so we would have had time to go over so much
This
in
is
one night.
almost 3 meetings worth in one night,
Yeah.
it's true.
We just didn't want to keep pushing it off.
Yeah, we
So
do,
we
we
do
do.
appreciate it.
Lots of good information.
Yeah. So do we have a motion just to accept the presentation?
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Delaney, supported by Mr. Myers, that we accept the presentation. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Next item?
9.01, 2017 school building and site bonds, unlimited tax general obligation.
Motion.
Support.
I have a motion by Ms. Delaney, supported by Mr. Zorn, that we accept the school building and site bond obligation resolution. I believe this requires a roll call.
Could we just get a synopsis of what we're voting on?
This one is the new bonds, so that we can send them out to be sold and get the money in January, February. And actually, it's going to be a private sale through PNC because they've been very gracious at giving us the lower interest rate or the interest rate that's best for our bond. And with our rating, it wouldn't be prudent to go out and to bid.
Any other questions? Requires a roll call.
Bear with me one moment. Mr. Masters?
Excused.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Zorn votes yes. Mr. Riley?
Votes yes. That passes 6-0. Next item, please.
9.02, 2017 refunding bonds, limited tax general obligation.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Hankin, supported by Mrs. Delaney, that we approve the refunding bonds and limited tax general obligation.
Just another synopsis.
This one is our 2005, 2006 bonds that we are just renewing, and we've tried to go out to renew them before. However, we now have someone willing to renew them. So it'll save us approximately $300,000 over the next couple of years.
Does it extend the life of the payment?
It does not extend the life of the payments. The payments are the same range. It just lowers the interest rate.
Does this require a roll call this morning?
Yes, please.
Any other discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Masters is excused. Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Zorn votes yes. Mr. Riley?
Votes yes. That passes 6-0. Next item.
10.01, closed session.
We have a closed session tonight? No. Okay. Next item.
11.01, possible action following closed session.
There is none.
12.01, Adair et al. Versus State of Michigan.
Motion.
Support.
I have a motion by Mr. Delaney, support by Mr. Zorn, that we work up to
Resolution.
the resolution. Okay, I'm sorry. Any discussion on this? This is what was talked about earlier in the superintendent's report.
This is a resolution to remove ourselves from the Adair payment.
Okay, any discussion on that? Requires a roll call.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Masters is excused. Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Zorn votes yes. Mr. Riley?
Votes yes, that passes 6-0. Next item.
13.01, bylaw and policy development services, Neola.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Honeycutt, supported by Mr. Delaney, that we accept the bylaw, or the contract, I'm assuming, with Neola for bylaws and policy development. Is there any discussion on that? We've had presentations on this already.
We desperately need this because our policies are outdated, so it's the cost of doing business.
Any other,
Completely agree.
any other discussion?
Mr. Riley, is this the tape you give us?
There's several inserts that go with this.
Yes.
That is,
There's 3 different pieces to this, agenda items.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Next item, please.
13.02, administrative guidelines development services, Neola.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Delaney, supported by Mr. Honeycutt, that we accept the administrative guideline development service from Neola. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?